Post-draft trade candidates for the Raiders. The 2025 NFL Draft is in the books, and the Las Vegas Raiders came out with 11 new draft picks and 16 undrafted free agents. With a new leadership team now in place, including Pete Carroll and John Spytek, there's a chance the Raiders might shake things up even more, potentially moving on from players tied to previous regimes. Let's break down some names that could be trade candidates following the draft. 1. Michael Mayer, tight end. Michael Mayer's future in Las Vegas has been a hot topic. Although rumors swirled around a possible trade during the draft, nothing materialized. However, things still seem uncertain. Despite not drafting a tight end, the Raiders added 3 at the bottom of the roster, including Ishmael. It's worth noting that they cleared space by cutting 6 players before the draft and made trades with teams like the Dolphins and Texans to add more picks. Even with no new tight end drafted, Las Vegas currently carries 7 at the position. Brock Bowers is clearly viewed as the TE1 moving forward, which puts Mayer in a questionable spot. If the team does trade him, it would save around $653,000 in cap space, while taking a $1.9 million hit in dead money. Mayer still has value, especially in a 2 tight end system. Bowers can even flex out as a wide receiver. But if a trade happens, teams to watch include the Titans and Patriots, given their ties to former Raiders decision-makers like Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels. The Jaguars, Saints, and Giants could also be in the market for a tight end. 2. Aidan O'Connell. Quarterback next on the list is Aidan O'Connell. While many believe he's a solid backup to Geno Smith, the Raiders might view things differently. They reportedly had interest in Joe Milton prior to the draft and ended up selecting Cam Miller in round 6, pick 215. O'Connell brings value. He's played in 20 games and started 17. That kind of experience could attract teams looking for a reliable backup. Even if the Raiders keep him, it wouldn't be surprising to see his name come up in trade talks. Aidan O'Connell remains an intriguing name. If traded, he'd only cost the acquiring team around $1.2 million, which is a bargain for a quarterback with starting experience. Honestly, if you asked all 32 NFL teams whether they'd want him on their roster at that price, the answer would likely be yes. Now, would teams actually give up a draft pick for him? Before the draft, maybe not. But now that it's over, teams may be more open to parting with a 6th or 7th round pick in 2026 to land a reliable backup. Potential destinations? New England is always in the mix when it comes to former Raiders players, given Josh McDaniels' connection. Tennessee could be an option too, especially if they're reevaluating Will Levis. The Packers and Buccaneers also make sense, as O'Connell may already offer more upside than someone like Kyle Trask. And don't sleep on the Rams, where he could challenge both Jimmy Garoppolo and Stetson Bennett for a roster spot. Trey Tucker, wide receiver. One name we haven't discussed much in trade talks until now is wide receiver Trey Tucker. But after the Raiders drafted 3 new wideouts, Jack Beck, round 2, pick 58, Dante Thornton Jr., round 4, pick 108, and Tommy Mellott, round 6, pick 213. Tucker's future feels uncertain. He's now entering his 3rd year and his 3rd coaching regime. That's usually the point where wide receivers are expected to break out, but the Raiders' moves suggest they're looking in a different direction. Thornton is faster and a better deep threat. Beck is more polished as a route runner. Mellott, meanwhile, could take over special teams duties, which were once seen as Tucker's path to playing time. Financially, trading Tucker would save the Raiders $1 million in cap space, while costing just $429,000 in dead money. He was originally viewed as a 5th-round talent when drafted in the 3rd, and it's possible another team sees potential in his skill set. Trey Tucker, wide receiver. Trey Tucker was drafted using the pick acquired from the Darren Waller trade, and while his value has been debated, there are a few teams that could be interested in a player with his speed and physicality. The Miami Dolphins might be worth watching, especially with ongoing questions around Tyreek Hill. If Miami is looking to add more speed to its offense, Tucker could fit as a depth piece or gadget player. Another solid fit? The Baltimore Ravens. Tucker's toughness, blocking ability, and field-stretching speed would complement Baltimore's offensive scheme well. Though undersized, his background as a high school wrestler speaks to his physical edge. He's not afraid to get involved in contact, something Baltimore values in their receivers. Other potential landing spots include Cincinnati Bengals, Pittsburgh Steelers, Tennessee Titans, especially due to past connections with former Raiders staff now in Tennessee. These teams all operate in physical divisions or have ties to past Raiders decision makers, making them logical trade partners if the Raiders decide to move on from Tucker. Dylan Parham, offensive lineman. Next up is Dylan Parham, a 3-year starter entering the final year of his rookie deal. While he's been reliable, the Raiders now have depth and versatility on the offensive line, raising the question, do they keep him or try to trade him while his value is still high? This offseason, the team signed Alex Kappa, re-signed Jordan Meredith, and drafted Caleb Rogers, a lineman capable of playing both tackle and guard. With Parham's versatility, he still offers strong trade value. But financially, moving on from him would save the Raiders $3.7 million against the cap while costing just $228,000 in dead money. Despite his value, trading Parham could be a tough call internally. He's highly respected in the locker room and considered a glue guy among his teammates. But sometimes, tough decisions have to be made if a trade benefits both sides. Teams that could be interested in Parham would likely be those needing a flexible, experienced interior lineman who can start immediately or add depth. Could Tyrie Wilson or Tommy Iikinberg be dealt next? Tyrie Wilson, defensive line. Let me be honest, I don't want the Raiders to trade Tyrie Wilson. In fact, I hope I get a message from him calling me out for even suggesting it. But part of the goal of this show is to look at all realistic possibilities. So here's the situation. If the Raiders decide to move Wilson, it would make more sense after June 1st. Why? Because the team would save $3 million in cap space while taking on just $3 million in dead money. Wilson still has potential. He's versatile, able to play both defensive end and defensive tackle. But the front office moves raise questions. Las Vegas re-signed Malcolm Kunze, brought back Adam Butler, and drafted 2 defensive tackles, both of whom can also line up on the edge. That kind of roster shift puts pressure on Wilson to prove he belongs in the rotation. If he were traded, here are the top landing spots. Dallas Cowboys. He trains there in the offseason, his agent is based in Dallas, and he has strong Texas ties. Houston Texans, a familiar fit with his Texas background. New York Jets. They love explosive athletes and could gamble on his upside. Philadelphia Eagles, known for taking chances on defensive talent. Atlanta Falcons could use help on the edge and value versatile linemen. Again, this isn't a move I'd push for, but the possibility exists based on roster depth and financial flexibility. Tommy Iikinberg, linebacker. Another under-the-radar name to watch is Tommy Iikinberg, drafted in the 5th round in 2024. While the Raiders were high on him during the draft, the team recently selected Cody Lindenberg out of Minnesota in the 7th round, and he could end up challenging Iikinberg for a roster spot. Lindenberg's size and play style directly compete with Iikinberg's, creating potential overlap. There's also a case to be made for Amari Burney being on the bubble, but Iikinberg may have a tougher time standing out, especially in a room that's quickly getting crowded with young, fast, and versatile linebackers. If Iikinberg doesn't win the battle in camp, the Raiders may look to trade him rather than risk losing him for nothing. Tommy Iikinberg, a tough fit in today's NFL? Tommy Iikinberg is a smart, instinctive linebacker, but he's not the most athletic player, and that's starting to matter more in today's NFL. The Raiders' recent draft picks and undrafted free agent signings show a clear focus on speed and raw athleticism. Unfortunately, that's not Iikinberg's game. He's more of an old-school linebacker, tough, physical, and always around the ball. That's great, but it might not be enough when you're competing against freak athletes like Amari Burney, who the Raiders seem to be higher on. Burney fits the mold of the new Raiders defense. Iikinberg doesn't. If Las Vegas moves on from him, here are some teams that could be interested. New England Patriots, especially with their history of valuing smart linebackers like Robert Spillane. Cleveland Browns and Cincinnati Bengals. Iikinberg is an Ohio native, and both teams might like that local connection. Carolina Panthers and Seattle Seahawks. Their linebacker rooms are thin, and they might take a flyer on someone with Iikinberg's instincts. He might not wow teams with speed or combined numbers, but he was productive in college and always seemed to find the football. If given a real chance, he could prove valuable in the right system. Final thoughts on Raiders trade candidates. Let's recap the post-draft trade candidates we've talked about. Aidan O'Connell, QB. Trey Tucker, WR. Michael Mayer, TE. Briefly mentioned earlier, Tyrie Wilson, DL, Dylan Parham, OL, Tommy Iikinberg, LB. Let me be clear, I don't have any inside info that the Raiders are actively shopping these players. This is just my personal analysis based on roster moves, draft picks, and player value. If I were in an NFL front office, I'd be calling the Raiders and asking, "Hey, are you shopping any of these guys?" If you've stuck with the video this far, you're a real one. Make sure you've got those notifications on, because if any of these players do get traded, I'll be the first to break it down.